Welcome to episode 11 of the Dadger, where discipline meets drive and passion meets purpose. This week we sit down with Andrew Stone, a standout Wisconsin Badger, shot putter, state champion, and relentless competitor. From dominating the high school circuit to launching bombs in the Big Ten, Andrew opens up about the mindset it takes to be elite, the pressure of representing your home state, and how working with youth through the Ronald McDonald House has shaped his outlook on leadership and giving back. It's all about heart, home, and throwing your weight behind what matters. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to talk about some of this stuff out of my long 6-year career.
Yeah, and we'll definitely dive into the whole COVID experience. But to start here, I tried my best to do some research on you. You don't have a super big prevalence on social media, so it was a little difficult. So I know you're from Fond du Lac, obviously, and Wisconsin website said you had a brother. But other than that, I couldn't dig up too much. So tell us a little bit about your family and upbringing.
Yeah, so I have one older brother. He's 27. Just had a kid. Might have another one soon. And he went to the Army, but besides him, that was it. Just kind of me and my older brother, and the kind of age gap was big enough to where, I was never even in school with him, besides 1 year in middle school.
Was he so for people who don't know, you're a pretty big guy. Was he also built like that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of funny. Like my dad always says, if he really took sports seriously, he could have been just as good, if not even better. Because I'm about 5'10", 11 ish, and he was like 6'2". So like he was very good. He was starting varsity as a freshman, but just didn't have the passion, for sports. So
yeah. So talking about a little bit about football, it looks like you started at a young age. That was one of the pictures I could find on Facebook, and then obviously became a track athlete later in life. Was football your favorite sport growing up? First passion, first sport.
100%. Yeah, like so football was the sport that I first developed a deep passion for, and like my favorite player was Clay Matthews, Packers, and it was the sport that I wanted to pursue, and like I wanted to play D1 ball. That was like my long time goal. And track was one of those sports that people did, or like our coaches made us do. And then I kind of started to develop I guess natural talent for track. So
yeah. So like I kind of talked about, were you always like a bigger kid compared to other kids growing up? Because on your rivals page, and this is a little bit different from what you just told me, it shows in high school you were listed as 6'1" and 255.
Yeah.
So did that make you I guess a natural to play line, or was there a different position that you wanted to play?
So I actually in elementary school, middle school, I was playing running back. So like I was probably like 180 to maybe 210 all the way until end of my freshman year of high school. So then once I kind of finished my freshman year, that's kind of when that position transition happened. So I kind of went from like that 210 to like 250 in my sophomore year, because my coaches wanted me to play offensive guard, like starting. So I was like, okay, if I'm not going to get beat up by these guys, I better, pack on weight. And I was still the smallest guy, at that weight. So I guess that tells you a little bit about like Fondy, but
well, that's not to say your football team was not good. So your football team was actually a pretty darn good football team during your career. I mean, you did snap the nation's longest high school football win streak against Kimberly. So aside from football, you also did track and field. Did you have any other sports throughout your high school career, or was it just the two there?
Just those two. Yeah. I mean, that was pretty much as I could really like balance. I had friends that would do like, wrestling and stuff like that, but I just never really had the bug for any of that stuff. So
talk us through a little bit how you ended up doing track and field. Was it just as simple as your football coach said, you know what, do this kind of in the spring to stay in shape, get you ready for football season? Was it kind of like a filler sport a little bit?
100%. It was the coaches always told us that if you're playing football, you have to be in track. And like, in middle school, I did track and field also, but when I got to high school, it definitely wasn't necessarily one of my focuses. It was like, okay, I'm a stronger kid, so I'm going to be, doing it, throwing, shot put, discus, whatever. But yeah, it was definitely always secondary until I got to a level in that sport that I was like, okay, the technique makes sense, and track is a very technique focused sport. So once the technique clicks and you get that like bug for it, all of a sudden it's like you just kind of fall in love with the sport.
So once you said you were doing it in middle school, were you a thrower in middle school? Like, was it a
Yep.
natural? You just,
Yeah.
I mean, you're built like a thrower, so you're a thrower, right?
And like at that time I wasn't like obviously as big, but
Right.
I was always one of the stronger kids. So I think it was just like, if you're slightly above average in size, you're gonna throw. And like at that time I had zero form, didn't really know what I was doing. But it wasn't until high school that my coach, who also was the varsity offensive line coach, he just really knew what he was doing. He a lot of like YouTube videos and stuff that he was like using to like reference. But again, once we just kind of kept on working at it, there was a point in my freshman year that I was considering quitting track, because when you learn the spin, or when you're trying to, it is a like embarrassing thing. Like you're like
Yeah.
in that ring, you don't really know what you're doing. You might fall. It's just it's not fun when you're not like confident. So then once
Yeah.
we got to a point with my form that I got really confident, like that's when all my numbers just like boom, way up. So
For me, I did track as well, but I was a jumper and a hurdler. So in high school, maybe in college too, but in high school for me, so it seemed like throwers almost had a brotherhood within
yeah.
all of them. I mean, is that a real thing, or did I just make that up, having never done any throws? I'm looking at it from afar, so I guess I'm just. Is that a real thing?
Yeah, I'm sure. I think that's definitely the case at some schools. Like, look at a school like Kimberly. Like, they have such a dominant program there. Like, all the kids there take it super, super seriously, and it is like a brotherhood, right? Like, when you're a part of a program like that, where the standards are very high, everybody wants to get better. But I think when I was at Fondy, we didn't really have like a rich history of anyone throwing super far. We had one guy, Peter Andrew, that threw 60, which was a big deal. Which like that's a great high school throw, but a lot of the kids didn't take it, I would say, as seriously, and it's because they were still stuck in that phase that I was telling you about, where they just weren't confident yet, and the spin was just something that a lot of kids just will never get. So I think there was a lot of kids that were just kind of in it because of football. So I would say the brotherhood piece, I don't know if we necessarily had that at Fondy, but yeah, it definitely does exist for sure.
So, do you think do you think you draw similarities between being a good football player, which is a team sport, and what it takes to be a good thrower, which is more individual scoring? I mean, they do have overall team score in track and field, but for the most part, it's like, unless you're doing relays, it's all you out there, right?
Yeah, I would say the way that I attacked football in terms of how I was thinking, I was trying to, obviously I'm playing for my brothers, right? Like that was the most like I guess like family feeling that I've had ever playing a sport. And but when I did play football, I was trying to individually dominate as much as I could. And obviously in turn that helps your teammates, right? So I kind of took that same mentality, and I really appreciated that about track, that there was nowhere to hide. Like if I had a bad meet, there's no one to blame really. Like and you can look up, throwing distances, and your career is very like, are you throwing good or are you not? Right. So I kind of
Mm-hmm.
I always liked having that individualistic pressure of just knowing, hey, like every single year, if I'm not working harder, then it's going to show, and all these coaches are going to see it. And I guess that's one of the pieces about the sport that I always really liked.
There's a video of you that the Overtime posted deadlifting 765 with it looked like you were doing it super easy. So two-part question here. What was the craziest weight you've lifted? And today, do you think you could replicate this lift?
Okay, are you saying all time, or are you saying just during that time?
All time, all time.
All time. That's tough.
Because I've seen some of your other lifting videos too. So
yeah, I mean, I would probably have to say that deadlift just because when I did that, I was probably 240 pounds. Like, I was not a super big dude yet. But like pound for pound, that was probably the strongest that I've ever been in my life. Like that Fond du Lac weight room program gets you strong, right? And if you're genetically like supposed to be strong, that program is going to bring that out. So like when I did that, like for it to blow up the way that it did, I think was kind of, I guess, more proof that that might have been the most impressive thing that I did, especially for that time.
Do you think you could? Do you think you could pop it off today?
No. And I'll say this, like, the main reason why I would say no is because when I've sustained a bicep tear, and when you have something like that, your arm can't be straightened like that under that much like load. So yeah. I don't know if I would physically be able to do that without snapping something.
So you talked a little bit about the weight program. Was the weightlifting regimen the same between football and track?
So to be honest with you, track didn't, at least for us, track didn't really have much of a weightlifting program. It was like the football lifting was the track lifting kind of a thing. And like my coach would throw in a couple different, track and field, like specific movements where one of them we'd like have a bar on our back and like twist, stuff like that. But it was pretty much just what we were doing for football. Yeah.
Between football and track and field, you had some pretty incredible accomplishments. We already talked about you snapping the 70-game winning streak in football, but you also won the Joe Thomas Award in football, and in track and field, you had some pretty great accomplishments as well. You're a two-time state champion in shot put and one time in discus. Your senior year, were you really battling back and forth between which sport you were going to pursue past high school?
For sure. Like, so that was probably one of the toughest like decisions of my life because, as a undersized, 5'10" offensive lineman, you kind of got to be real with yourself. Like, you're not going to get like legitimate Division I offers. So like I tried my best to maximize what I did, like winning the Joe Thomas Award and all that stuff. But I was also like, hey, like realistically, you got to be at least 6'3", right, to even have a shot, So I did really try to hold out as long as I could before I committed to do track and field, just to like exhaust any potential option of playing football, at the next level. Like my first visits to here at the Badgers was to play football. And then my coach even told me when I got here that he was actually really waiting on offering me to be sure that football was not going to offer, because obviously he didn't want to tie his money up or whatever. So yeah, I definitely waited. And then kind of once it became clear that, all my football opportunities were going to be D2s, I kind of was like, all right, I got great, big time D1 program offers to go do track and field. It would be foolish not to get my education paid for, and take one of those offers. So,
yeah, you mentioned it a little bit, but I read an article on 24/7 Sports that said that the Badgers might be pursuing you for fullback. Yeah. Was that ever a conversation that they had with you? And if so, was it more like, kind of like a Brady Ewing where it's like, okay, you can walk on and earn a scholarship type of thing?
Yeah. So I talked to Chris at that time, and he had said that if you wanted to walk on, it wouldn't be a PWO. It would just be a flat out walk on.
Yeah.
And they would be putting me at the fullback position. So, I didn't really look at it as enough of a slam dunk because I had never played fullback in high school. So I
Yeah.
was like, I would be coming into this with no like upper hand at all to like prove myself at this spot. So that's kind of why I never actually pursued that. Now down the road, there actually ended up being a second opportunity that presented itself. But I mean, I don't know if you want to get into that, but
Yeah.
yeah. So basically, as I was talking about earlier, so my high school friend Braylon, who he was a freshman or sophomore when I was a senior, his sophomore season, so Chris last season, he was really trying to get me to play football because it was always like one of the things that we would talk about, that it'd be crazy if we were both playing football together or whatever. So he kind of really like went to bat for me to give me an opportunity, like a kind of a second opportunity to play. So he was kind of, I would say like pestering Chris, just staying in his ear, going to his office, like, hey man, Stone could be, a solid, defensive lineman or whatever. And so I had a couple office visits with Chris, and it was very close to me playing defensive line at the university. And then like shortly I was going to a couple of the like practices and all this, and fast forward a couple of weeks later and Chris is actually let go. So
Okay.
I kind of almost looked at that as my like sign,
Yeah.
like, hey, you can officially put this to bed, because I was not going to have that opportunity had Braylon not kind of been going to bat for me like that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and then that was kind of it.
So not only were you having the dilemma of choosing the sport, but you had Baylor, you had Minnesota, you had Wisconsin recruiting you for track. From your Twitter, it looked like NIU, SDSU, Miami of Ohio were all kind of having you come on visits for football. So what went into the decision-making process for not only the sport, but also the school? And was there anybody like you really leaned on to help you make those decisions at that time?
Yeah, I would say for one, just like my faith, I was just, praying a lot during that time and just really trying to help, have God just guide me into what he wanted me to do. But, obviously talk to my parents a lot, and kind of having them give me a little bit of like feedback on where they think that I should go. And, I wasn't able to take really as many visits as what I would like,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you, just because it's a lot for parents to like get off work over and over and
Yeah.
like fly to all these different places. So I kind of really only visited. I had an in-home with Minnesota. I went to Baylor, and then I went to Wisconsin. So even though I had more offers than that, I never got to really visit. And it was definitely tough because some of the offers that I had and some of like the facilities that I got to see were just crazy. And
Yeah.
not that the Badgers stuff is not good, but some of these other schools, they just have a lot more resources to spend into just what stuff looks like.
Yeah.
So like I had to definitely get past the like superficial aspect of that and really just look into like what my training environment was going to be like. And like that was honestly, the academics obviously huge, but when I was looking at myself as a football guy and having that training environment of all these people, right? Like the weight room is just everyone's yelling at you when you're going to max out. And I'm like, okay, transitioning into a sport like track, if I go to a place that has like one or two throwers, I'm going to have no training environment, and I just didn't see myself succeeding that way. So like when I committed to Wisconsin, I was like, okay, we had like, I want to say 13 or 14 throwers, which is like a decent amount. Like for track, that's a decent amount of throwers. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I can have some people here that are going to kind of push me, and it won't feel so different from what I came from, So
Did any of the other track schools or any of like the D2 colleges that you talked about, did any of them have such a good pitch that maybe you thought about not going to Wisconsin and going there instead?
so really no, I would say, because most of my Division II offers came after I went to a SDSU camp. And so like
Okay.
all of the like obviously they have a bunch of D2 schools that are running that. So like when I performed well at that camp, all of a sudden I got 5-6 phone calls that like the preceding 2 or 3 days, and none of them really had any offer that was like blown off my socks, I guess, and I think
Hmm.
that's the blessing of having the track and field offers, because my junior and senior year, I was able to finish my junior year first in the country, then in my senior year third,
Yep.
or fourth, one of those two. And so the track offers were so much better than any D2 offer that like it
Yeah.
was it was just like a slam dunk kind of.
Yeah. So the transition between high school and college, personally and socially, what was that like, and what was the biggest change for you?
So the biggest change was probably how serious I had to take my academics. And the University of Wisconsin is a prestigious academic school. So like, not that I didn't have to try in high school, but high school was not difficult for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you're really like giving it a decent effort, you're gonna do fine. So when I got to Madison, my first semester, you know, I definitely didn't develop the proper study habits to be successful. And I kind of was just going with the flow. I was so focused on like my training and track and stuff, and maybe even playing too many video games. But like I kind of fell into that like lull. And when I got to like midway through, I'm like, okay, if you don't lock in, your grades are gonna start slipping. So I had to like really set aside, and for the first time ever, set aside a real time to just like study and like create an actual study schedule. And that was a big time foreign concept to me, because what I was doing in high school was not going to cut it. So that was
Yeah.
a crazy like kind of eye opening moment for me.
You talked about your senior year. You were ranked number 3 in the nation in shot put. Fast forward, you they redshirt you your freshman year at Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yep.
And then you have the 2020 season, which is canceled due to COVID.
Yep.
Did all that time off shake your confidence at all about being able to hang with the big dogs, so to speak?
So not really. It was a very interesting time, because we do like what we call like inter squad meets, where you get to kind of have a fake mock meet, and you kind of get to know where you're at distance wise. So before COVID hit in my freshman year, that happened in the second semester of my freshman year there, I kind of knew that I was throwing far enough to be somewhat competitive at the Big Ten level, like even that first year. So I kind of, when all that stuff started happening, I went into it like happy that I'm already at a point that I can potentially get points at the Big Ten championships.
Sure.
So I kind of just like attacked. I mean, I'm kind of known as like the weight room guy. So like I just like attacked that off season, that long extended off season, super super hard, and just every time that I was in the gym, I was like, this is what it's going to take to get you to, be not just competing, but like one of the best guys. And that like motivation was awesome. Like gyms weren't open right away, but as soon as they were open, I was in there grinding. So
Yeah. So how do you think? So in 2021, when you came back, you ended up getting personal best in shot put and discus. Got fifth in indoor and outdoor Big Ten, I believe.
yep.
Um, how did you stay? How did you mentally and physically keep that competitive edge? Like, how did you keep the drive, I guess?
It was really just trusting my coach at that point. I've been blessed to have one of the best coaches in the entire Big Ten conference, and just the amount of training, especially in like the weight room that we did, we got so strong. Like if I always say if you can survive what we do, you're gonna be good. Because it's super intense. The squatting is super super heavy. The benching is heavy. So I got so strong to a point where it built so much confidence. Where even though that year my form wasn't great, like I was so strong that I could still throw far. So even when things weren't like perfect, that gave me so much confidence to know that like, hey, trust what you've been doing, and you're gonna have a meet that's probably gonna get you points. and win most meets.
Yeah.
So
On your UW stat page, it says that you held the school record. I follow the throwing Instagram for the Badgers. I think Jason Swarns broke it in May, and then Joseph White breaks the discus record as well. Was the goal within like the men's throwing group to just constantly make each other better? Because I was looking at some of the tracks results from like years prior, and it looked like you were beating Jason in a decent amount of meets.
yeah, so the context to that is Jason did not learn the rotational shot put until he got to college.
Okay.
So Jason did the glide when he was in high school, which any thrower knows, like when you learn the spin, you automatically add probably 3 to 4 feet, right? Like instantly. So, when I was first starting out, that was when I was kind of, I would say, almost inching towards the peak of my career. Like my third year at Madison, my second year competing was like the peak, very strong. And Jason was still learning. So early in Jason's career, I would beat him at basically every single meet. But then once a couple key things happened, Jason actually learned the technique. And Jason's a freak athlete. He's 6'4", explosive, should be playing football somewhere.
Yeah.
And then after that next season, that was my best season ever when I broke the outdoor school record for the first time. That next season, I sustained kind of a career shifting injury. Kind of like talking about that bicep thing that I was talking about earlier. That was a like very pivotal moment for me. That I had to almost reshift my focus, because that was the first plateau that I've ever had in my career. Every year up until that point, it was up, and up. So
How did you mentally bounce back from that injury?
I would say it was,
because I assume you
tough.
probably couldn't lift like you wanted to, right?
No. Like there was definitely like some weeks where it was just super, super tough. And like, I had to really lean on like my support system during that time. Because yeah, it was an unfamiliar like phase, because again, I had been always getting better every single year. And so then to sustain a bicep injury like that, it was actually on my non-throwing arm. And once that happened, there was a lot of lifts that I could no longer do. So like I couldn't do like hang cleans, snatches, anything
Yep.
where my arm was straight. I could no longer do it. And even flat bench, because later in that year that I got that injury, your pec and your bicep are kind of like attached at the same area. So then that ended up being a pec injury, because I never let it properly heal. I was, I'm a competitor. I was just trying to fight, through it.
Yeah.
And so many things were altered that at that point in my career, I had to take a step back and be like, okay, success might look a little bit different now than what it would have looked like before. So I couldn't, at first that was like a discouraging feeling, but I realized I can still be competitive on the national level, even maybe not being at my strongest. Right. So once I kind of learned that, then things started to get better. For sure. So
since we're talking about mental toughness, is it tough to bounce back mentally after a bad throw, or maybe a great throw, but you just scratched? And what, in those moments, what did you use to ground yourself, kind of shake it off?
Yeah. It's for one. Yeah. It's definitely difficult to bounce back, especially when you have a good throw that you scratch, because you only have sometimes 3 attempts,
Yeah.
Mostly 6, but our sport is so tough mentally, because yeah, you might just have a slight off day and you can't save your best throw. And now you don't get a chance to, basically, fix that until the next week or maybe 2 weeks or whatever. So whenever I'm kind of struggling, or I'm in like a rut, or a meet isn't going great, I always just have to like remember to just have fun and not to put too much pressure, because I always would go back to my high school mentality, right? Like that was before, obviously, like you're on a scholarship. It's not as much of like a business. and
Yeah.
you're just having fun. And so every time that I would have a throw that wasn't great, I'm like, just have fun, just go out there. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, and, just, try your best, trust your technique, try your best. And typically I would end up throwing really, really good because I would take all that pressure off. And, I would tell teammates this, like, when you put pressure on yourself, like, it typically doesn't end well, right? Because our
Right.
sport is about being mentally dialed in and practice, practice, practice. And so just being a little bit flustered can be the difference of you PRing or throwing, like, 5 feet under what you should.
Yeah.
So
I talked a little bit about it with Paul Lanier, who is a Wisconsin legend in his own right. He's like one of the most winningest high jumpers in state history, but and then he went on to play with the do track with the Badgers as well. So he talked about, before he even got out there, he would mentally walk through what he needed to do. He'd walk through every single jump. Is that something that you did as a thrower as well? Like for mental preparation?
yeah. So I kind of did that without even knowing, like, the importance of it when I was in high school. Like, I had like this almost like ritual where before every single meet, as we were getting bussed to the meet, I would have slow Drake playing in my headset, and I would be like envisioning what the throws were gonna feel like. And it's like, it sounds funny, but it's like, that's just what I did. You know what I mean? It's like I just kind of kept doing that, because the more calm and the more I was envisioning what it was that I was gonna try to execute, then once I got in the ring, it felt like I had already done it. And that I think for the sport of throwing especially is huge, because it's all about all of those practice reps and just trusting what it is that you've already done hundreds of tens of thousands of reps. And as long as you can trust that, typically you throw far. So
Since we're talking about the mindset, if you had to describe your mindset in the ring in 3 words, what would they be?
in 3 words,
Put you on the spot.
I would just say mentally locked in. I mean, that's really the best way that I could explain it. Because I always tried to block everything out when I'll get in that ring. Didn't matter what happened before, bad week of practice, good week of practice. I would just lock in when it was in that moment. And, I was pretty much able to get points for our team at every Big Ten championship besides indoor this year. And I give that to my ability to just focus and lock in when it actually mattered. So
I think I know the answer to the non-physical part, since we've just been talking about mentality, but what is one physical and non-physical trait that makes great throwers elite?
one physical and non-physical trait. Well, physical trait, you just got to be diesel strong. Like, that's just every single thrower. Like, for me, especially not being a bigger guy, strength was huge, because you got to make up for not being 320 by being stronger, faster. Mentally, I would say like not being too up and not being too low ever. Just kind of staying in that like nice like flow state, like middle, because in this sport, either one of those two things can be major hindrances to you throwing far. Because if you're too up and you're all psyched up on Monster or something, you're probably not going to execute the cues, right? And if you're like doubting yourself, then you lose the confidence to execute, right? So
shot put and discus are such a blend, I think, of raw power and precise technique. What is a common misconception people have about throwers?
I would say that, like, the only reason why that we throw far is because we're strong. I think that's like something that, a lot of people that don't know much about the sport, they just assume like, yeah, you get strong, you throw something far. But our sport is like just as much about your mental and just all the practice reps and trusting your technique. Because like I said, when I was in high school, I was strong, but my form wasn't very good. And, as I look back on that time, like, I wish that I invested so much more time into the technical aspects of the sports, because I probably could have been significantly better than I did, but I was not as focused on track as I probably should have been.
Yeah, and if you look at throwers' technique, especially at that high of a level, like the agility that it takes to have that, kind of spinning motion and still not throw your body over, I
Yeah,
mean, that's crazy.
it's tough.
Do you have a favorite stadium or track to throw in?
So besides our home track, is like our home like throwing facility is awesome, and that's where I broke the original school record. But I would say, cut me some slack, but I would say Minnesota. They got a pretty good facility there, and it's pretty much like brand new. Like they just built a brand new track, and I've had some pretty good throws there. So
Did it ever cross your mind like, oh, maybe I should have gone to Minnesota?
yeah, I mean, I definitely had the home visit, and I actually really do like the Minnesota coach. Like he's one of the dudes that every time that I would see him at like meets, he's always like, what's up, Stone? How you doing and stuff like that. And like to me, that kind of goes a long way because it shows that even though we're not on the same team here, like he still like remembers from way back when and still wants to see me do well. So,
would you say that your injury was the hardest lesson you learned from throwing in college? And if so, how did that translate to life outside of the sport?
I would say 100%. Like, I was lucky to like growing up. I never had crazy like hardship, whether that was, family or anything like that. Like I had a great like support system from my dad, my mom. Everything was pretty smooth. And I, attribute a lot of my success to that. But again, once I got that injury, it's like, man, like, so you're not, invincible, I guess, like that was the first kind of moment of me being like, wow, now you have to really rehab this. Who knows what everything will look like from this point. And yeah, so like, I would say that kind of just allowed me to learn how to really mentally get through adversity. Like it kind of helped me realize like, hey, you're gonna fall on rough patches, but it's how you respond to that rough patch that kind of makes you who you are. And that's something that like now I feel like I'm so much more prepared for something happening that's less than ideal.
Might be a stupid question, but prior to injury, had you ever thought of becoming a power lifter and doing those competitions with how much weight you could, you know?
Yeah. So there was quite a few powerlifter people that either followed me or I followed that like told me that I should pursue it at least when I'm like done. The only reason why like I didn't obviously is because that's not going to pay for your education,
Yeah.
So it's like that was always something that I was considering doing after. Now, obviously, now having injuries and stuff like that, like it's probably not the smartest thing to do. But yeah, I definitely was. I would always think about what could I do if I just jumped into that kind of sport. It'd be fun.
So once again, I think I know this, but was there a moment in your UW career, either inside or out of the ring, that you think was a defining moment in your life so far? And if it was the injury, was there anything else outside of sports maybe that was a defining moment for you?
Yeah. Outside of sports, I mean, one inside of sport was the first time that I qualified for nationals after my injury, right? Because again, like I said, unable to do so many of those lifts that are crucial to perform at your top level in this sport. I didn't really know if I could ever get back to the highest level of our sport after that. And, so when I qualified for indoor nationals, the season after I sustained that injury, that was a massive deal. Now I ended up getting hurt at the national championships, which sucked, but just me getting to the pinnacle of our sport and like not being at my 100% and just not physically not being able to, but still being able to kind of get there was like awesome. So
you've been, if I can jump here, you've been involved with the Ronald McDonald House charities. How long have you been involved with those, and how did you get into doing that?
yeah, so my sophomore year, we had mandatory volunteering hours that we would all do. So the first time that I ever volunteered with them was through UW, and we went to a like Thanksgiving drive where we were like giving out like groceries and all that stuff for families, and that was the first kind of activity that I ever did with them, and like that was awesome. Like once I did that, that was not my first time um, doing anything like that, but like that was my first time being in college doing any sort of like volunteering work, and just being able to serve lower income families and like being able to help out. That was awesome, right? And like the first time that I did that, I was like, hey, I would definitely go back and just do this on my own. Um, and so then fast forward to this past year, then I went to the Ronald McDonald House by myself and volunteered and just helped, prepping food, stuff like that. And again, awesome experience. And it's something that once you start to volunteer like that, you really do kind of catch the bug for it, because you're able to help these communities that, obviously need the help, but you're just doing like a act of kindness for them. You can sign up online. You can go to their website and just sign up for a date. You don't have to be a student athlete or anything. Anyone can do it. So I would definitely encourage anyone that hasn't to definitely go and do that. But yeah, it was something that I had done before, but yeah, I definitely loved it, and I would love to do something like that again for sure.
Have you ever thought about, I guess, either starting your own charity, or like there are so many former Badgers that have charities. Have you ever thought about like joining their cause? For example, I'm going to give Alex Erickson a plug because he did an interview with me. But
Okay. Yeah.
the Erickson Foundation, like they do golfing events and stuff like that. So it's Alec Ingold, all those guys have charities. So have you ever thought about starting your own, or?
I haven't really put too much thought into it, but it's really because I don't know what the exact steps to that look like. But now that you mentioned that, I would 100% be open to doing something like that for sure. Especially, just now transitioning out of being an athlete myself, I want to try to figure out ways to give back, as much as I can, whether that's, to Fond du Lac or, to a charity or anything like that. I feel like I'm kind of in that phase now that I'm going to start, I guess, thinking completely differently about the way that I'm trying to give back versus being so wrapped up in athletics and school and all that stuff. So,
talking about training, you also help people with personal training, Stone Strength, and that is training former athletes as well as helping them with dieting. Are you looking to build that into a full-time business and career now that your college career is coming to an end? Or I guess, what does the next chapter in life kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of just taking a little bit of time off, obviously, from finishing everything that I've done for the past 6 years of my life. But yeah, with that, I've done personal training on the side while I've been in college for the past 3 or 4 years, just using my undergraduate. And my undergraduate is in health promotions and health equities. So that's helping marginalized communities basically become fit. And I wanted to find a way to utilize that and truly help people. So now that I'm kind of on the other side, I want to try to use that as a opportunity to help people in my exact position that, maybe haven't been the most healthy. Like I've had to be at a body weight that I probably shouldn't be at. I've had some different health stuff pop up that haven't been ideal. That's directly correlated to me being heavy. So I'm in the middle of my own kind of post, sports transition to becoming fitter. So I'm really going to probably start advertising that once I become very, very healthy and much fitter than I am now. So that's kind of shelved until I can like lead by example.
Sure.
Make that transition. So,
well, when you do, let us know. We'll be happy to shout it out for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
So anything I saw on social media, and I'm sorry if you do, you're not a parent, correct?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Since you're not a parent, I kind of always end these things with two questions. So we're going to kind of tailor it a little bit more to you since you just graduated college. If you could go back and speak to yourself as a freshman on campus, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Love the weight room, but don't overdo it. That's what I would say. For for sure.
And then, of course, last but not least, since you're on here, can you give us a prediction on any upcoming Badger sports since I know track season just ended less than a month ago, pretty much?
Well, I would say that I think Wisconsin football is going to take a massive leap this year. And
okay, I like that.
I really do believe it because, I mean, it's kind of after what happened this past season, I know that it's going to be tough to like do worse than that technically. But what I'm saying is I think that with this new offensive coordinator, I think that it's more fit for what Wisconsin was meant to do in the first place. So I think we're going to see kind of a slight return of what used to be in a much more consistent offense. So
do you, since you brought him up, do you and Braylon ever chop it up now that he's out of the system, I guess?
Oh yeah. All the time.
And tell you what it was compared to like when he went through there?
All the time. Yeah. I mean, I lived with Braylon a year when we were both in college, and we still keep in touch. I was out by him this past summer, but yeah, he's definitely mentioned, the difference of what it felt like with the Paul Chryst offense versus the, Longo offense and all that. And
yeah,
I think a lot of people during that time, like that was a massive change, and obviously didn't seem to work out. So
right. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. That's a wrap on episode 11 of the Dadger with Wisconsin track standout Andrew Stone. From the throwing circle to giving back off the field, Andrew's story is a reminder that greatness isn't just measured in distance. It's measured in purpose, resilience, and impact. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and drop a comment letting us know who you'd like to join us next. Until next time, on Wisconsin.